My son looked me straight in the eyes, and instead of love, I saw a coldness I'll never forget. His hands reached out toward me, but not to embrace me, but to push me from the top of Rainbow Falls. "Let's see if you can handle the drop, Mom," were his exact words. And I fell. I fell 60 feet while the roar of the water drowned out my scream of terror and pain. As my body crashed against the rocks, only one question pierced through my mind. How did I get here? How did my own son, the child I carried in my womb, whom I breastfed, whom I comforted through nightmares, become my executioner? Before continuing this gripping story, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm sure my story will touch your heart. The ice-cold water wrapped around me like a deadly embrace. I felt my ribs fracturing, my shoulder dislocating, warm blood mixing with the crystal-clear waterfall. But what hurt most wasn't the physical wounds. It was the certainty that my own son had left me there to die. I managed to drag myself to the shore, every movement agony that brought tears of rage and helplessness. My clothes torn, my body bruised, but my spirit began transforming into something my son never expected. It took me 6 hours to walk those 12 miles back home. 6 hours of pain, reflection, and a fury that grew with each step. Because during that endless walk, I understood something that would change everything. I had raised a monster, and now I had to decide whether to save him or confront him. When I finally got home, the lights were on. My son had returned, probably expecting to find an empty house, free from the mother he considered a burden. But I was there, waiting for him in the living room, in my blood-stained clothes and with a smile he had never seen before. "Hello, sweetheart," I said with a calmness that surprised even me. "I have a surprise for you, too." His face transformed from relief to terror in seconds, because there was something in my eyes that told him his plan had failed, and the consequences were just beginning. But that was only the beginning of a story that would change our lives forever. To understand how we reached that terrible moment at the falls, I must take you back 20 years when everything started going wrong without me realizing it. Tyler was born on a February dawn during a thunderstorm that seemed to foreshadow the tempest he would bring to my life. From early on, he was different. While other children cried over normal things, he cried for power. He wanted to control everything: his toys, his younger siblings, and especially me. His father died when Tyler was 12, a workplace accident that left us alone, and I thought that tragedy would bring us closer together. How wrong I was. His father's absence didn't make him more vulnerable, but more calculating, as if he understood that now all responsibility, all the family assets, would depend on him. The first signs were subtle, small lies that grew like weeds. He'd tell me he was going to study and would go out with questionable friends. He'd promise to help around the house and disappear for days, but I justified everything. "It's the pain from losing his father," I'd tell myself. "He'll mature eventually." When he turned 18, things got worse. He started constantly asking me for money, first for studies he never completed, then for businesses that never prospered. Every time I gave him money, he promised it would be the last time, and every time, I believed him. My sister Carol warned me, "Hope, that boy is using you. Can't you see he doesn't respect you anymore?" But I accused her of being jealous, of not understanding a mother's love. How blind I was. The money ran out when Tyler turned 25. He had squandered a lifetime savings, his father's life insurance, even my parents' inheritance. But instead of taking responsibility, he blamed me. "If you had given me a better education," he'd say, "if you had known how to guide me better." That's when the veiled threats began. "Mom, you're getting older. You can't live alone in this big house." Or, "It would be better if you went to live with Aunt Carol. I'll take care of everything here." Everything said with a smile that never reached his eyes. The house had belonged to my parents, then to me, and now he wanted it. But legally, it was still mine, and that drove him crazy. The last few months were a silent ordeal. Tyler lived in the house but treated me like an intruder. He rationed my food, controlled the keys, spoke to me with a contempt that chilled my blood. I had begun to fear my own son. The morning of the falls, he woke me with a strange smile. "Mom, it's been a while since we went out together. How about we go to Rainbow Falls, like when I was little. His voice was sweet, almost affectionate, and I, hungry for affection, immediately accepted. During the trip, he talked about future plans, about how he wanted to take care of me, how sorry he was for treating me badly. My mother's heart filled with hope. I thought I had finally gotten my son back. Rainbow Falls was deserted that day. It was rainy season, and the trail was slippery. Tyler insisted on climbing to the highest lookout from where you could see the entire city. "So you can take beautiful photos, Mom," he told me. When we reached the top, he asked me to stand at the edge for the photo. I obeyed, trusting. That's when I saw his true face. There was no camera in his hands, only hatred in his eyes. "You know, Mom, I've been thinking a lot about our situation," he said, slowly walking toward me. "And I think it would be better for everyone if you simply disappeared." My blood froze. "Tyler, what are you saying?" "What I should have done years ago. You're a burden, Mom, a load. And it's time you faced the consequences." That's when he pushed me. And as I fell, I heard his laughter, a laugh that would haunt me throughout my recovery. But during those 6 hours walking back home, something changed in me forever. The physical pain was nothing compared to the mental clarity I gained. My son didn't just want to kill me, he had planned everything meticulously. And now it was my turn to plan. What came next changed everything. When I entered the house that night, bloodied and limping, Tyler was on the couch watching TV as if nothing had happened. When he saw me, the remote control fell from his hands. His face went through all the emotions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, a fake smile that no longer fooled me. "Mom, what happened to you? I looked for you everywhere at the falls. I thought you had come back on your own." His lie was so brazen, it almost made me laugh. But I was no longer the same naive woman from that morning. I had died at that waterfall, and what had returned was someone completely different. "Don't worry, son," I said with a calm that disturbed him. "It was just a small accident. But you know what they say? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." During the following days, I pretended to be the same mother as always. I complained about the pain, asked for help with household chores, acted like the fragile victim he expected. But at night, when he thought I was sleeping, I worked. First, I looked for all the house keys he had hidden. I found them in a shoebox in his room, along with documents that would chill my blood. Papers from a lawyer where he consulted how to inherit the house in case of his mother's accidental death. The bastard had been planning this for months. I also found credit card statements in my name that I had never signed. Tyler had forged my signature and accumulated debts of more than $30,000. His plan was perfect: kill me, inherit the house, and the debts would die with me. But there was more. Among his papers, I found photographs. Photographs of the falls taken days before our family outing. He had studied the angles, the rocks, the depth of the water. He had even marked the exact spot from where he planned to push me. My own son had turned my murder into a meticulous project. That night, I cried tears of rage, but also of liberation. I finally understood who I was living with. There were no more excuses, no more justifications. Tyler wasn't a confused or grieving son. He was a sociopath who had learned to use my mother's love as a tool to manipulate me. The next day, while he went out to look for work, another of his favorite lies, I visited my sister Carol. I told her everything, showed her the photographs, the documents. Carol went pale. "Hope, you have to report him. This is attempted murder." "No," I told her. "The police will want evidence I don't have. And Tyler is very smart. He knows how to manipulate situations. But I have a better plan." During the following weeks, I began my own investigation. I hired a private investigator, Mr. Aurelio, an older man who had been a cop for 30 years. I explained the situation, and he agreed to help me without asking uncomfortable questions. Mr. Aurelio discovered things that surprised even me. Tyler not only had gambling debts, but had scammed several people in the neighborhood with fake businesses. He had sold my car without my knowledge, forging documents. He had even tried to mortgage the house using forged documents, but the bank had rejected the application due to inconsistencies. "Your son is a professional criminal, Mrs. Hope," Mr. Aurelio told me. "And you're not his first victim. just the most convenient one. We also found out something more disturbing. Tyler had been visiting an older woman in the Riverside neighborhood, a rich widow named Mrs. Margaret. Apparently, he already had his next victim planned. That's when I understood this wasn't just about me. Tyler was a predator, and if I didn't stop him, he would continue hurting other mothers, other families. My plan began to take shape. First, I discreetly changed my legal documents. With Mr. Aurelio's help, I contacted a trusted lawyer and drafted a new will. In case of my accidental death, all my property would go to a charitable foundation, not to Tyler. I also included a special clause. If it was proven that my death was caused by him, he would automatically be disinherited and face criminal charges. Second, I installed hidden security cameras throughout the house. Mr. Aurelio knew a discreet technician who installed them while Tyler was out. Now every conversation, every threat, every suspicious movement would be recorded. Third, I began documenting everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every veiled threat. I kept a detailed diary with dates and witnesses when possible, but the most important part of my plan wasn't legal. It was psychological. Tyler had underestimated me his entire life. He saw me as an easy victim, an older, sentimental woman who would never hurt him. I was going to use that perception against him. One night, while we were having dinner, I decided to begin phase 2 of my plan. "Tyler," I said casually, "I've been thinking about what you told me about the house. You're right, it's too big for me alone." His eyes lit up with greed. "Really, Mom?" "Yes. I've decided to sell it to someone trustworthy, someone who would really appreciate it." His smile faded. "Sell it? But Mom, I thought we had agreed that you would inherit it?" I interrupted with a sweet smile. "Oh no, honey. I've changed my mind." That night I heard him destroying his room in rage. The cameras captured everything. My son didn't know who he was messing with, but he was about to find out. The real war was just beginning. The days following my announcement about selling the house were like living with a volcano about to erupt. Tyler tried to maintain the facade of the caring son during the day, but at night I heard him talking on the phone with someone, planning something that chilled my blood. One morning, while we were having breakfast, a woman I didn't recognize arrived. She was elegant, about 50 years old, with a professional smile that didn't inspire confidence. "Good morning, Mrs. Hope. I'm Elena Vasquez, real estate broker. Your son contacted me because I understand you want to sell the house." Tyler looked at me with a triumphant smile, as if he had made checkmate, but I was already expecting this move. "I'm afraid there was a misunderstanding, Mrs. Vasquez," I replied politely. "I haven't contacted any broker, and although I'm considering selling, I must first resolve some legal matters." The woman looked confused, alternately looking at Tyler and me. My son quickly intervened. "Mom, we already talked about this. You even gave me authorization to—" "Authorization?" I interrupted, maintaining my sweet but firm tone. "Tyler, honey, I think your memory is failing you. I never gave you any authorization. In fact, yesterday I visited my lawyer to clarify exactly who has the right to make decisions about my property." The tension in the atmosphere was palpable. Elena Vasquez, uncomfortable, apologized and left quickly. As soon as she left, Tyler exploded. "What the hell are you doing, Mom?" "Taking care of my interests, son. Something I should have done years ago." His eyes filled with rage that he no longer tried to hide. "This house belongs to me by right. I'm your only son, your natural heir. Rights are earned, Tyler, and you've proven that you don't deserve anything I have." It was the first time in 20 years I had spoken to him with such harshness, and his reaction was revealing. Instead of pain or regret, I saw pure calculation in his eyes. "Be careful, Mom," he told me in a low, threatening voice. "Accidents can happen twice." The cameras captured every word. That afternoon, while Tyler was out, I received an unexpected visit. It was Mrs. Margaret, the rich widow from the Riverside neighborhood that Mr. Aurelio had mentioned. "Mrs. Hope," she said with tears in her eyes, "I need to talk to you about your son." I served her tea and asked her to make herself comfortable. Her story confirmed my worst suspicions. "Tyler has been courting me for 3 months," she began. "He tells me he loves me, that he wants to take care of me in my old age. But my niece, who's a lawyer, investigated a little and discovered terrible things. Mrs. Margaret showed me documents that took my breath away. Tyler had been meticulously investigating her assets. He knew how much money she had, where she kept her jewelry. He had even gotten copies of her original will. But that's not the worst part, continued Mrs. Margaret. Yesterday, he proposed to me, and when I told him I needed to think about it, he said something that scared me a lot. Don't worry, Mrs. Margaret. Older women sometimes suffer domestic accidents. It's natural. But I'll be there to console myself quickly and move on. My blood froze. Tyler hadn't just tried to kill me. He had a pattern. He was a serial predator of older women. Mrs. Hope, I came to warn you because my niece also investigated your situation. Your son is planning something against you, too. I told her about my experience at the falls. Mrs. Margaret covered her mouth in horror. We have to report him, she said. We will, I replied. But first, I need more evidence. He's very careful, very manipulative. We need a solid case. That's when I came up with the riskiest idea of my plan. Mrs. Margaret, would you be willing to help me set a trap for him? She looked at me with determination. If it prevents him from hurting more women, I'll do whatever is necessary. We designed a plan together. Mrs. Margaret would tell Tyler that she had decided to marry him, but first wanted to take a romantic trip. She would propose going to the same falls where he had tried to kill me. I would follow them at a distance with Mr. Aurelio and the authorities. It was risky, but if Tyler tried to do the same thing to Mrs. Margaret, we would have irrefutable evidence of his criminal pattern. The following days were intense preparation. Mr. Aurelio contacted a trusted police detective, Sergeant Morales, who agreed to help us unofficially. We got professional recording equipment and planned every detail. Meanwhile, Tyler seemed increasingly desperate. His nightly visits increased. His phone calls became more frequent and agitated. One night I heard him talking to someone. No, I can't wait any longer. The old lady is planning something. I can feel it. I have to act fast. Yes, I know it's risky doing two things so close together, but I have no choice. The money is running out, and the lenders are losing patience. There, I understood another component of his desperation. Tyler had gambling debts much more serious than we had discovered. He wasn't just a sociopath, but was being pressured by dangerous people. That made him even more unpredictable and dangerous. 2 days before the planned romantic trip with Mrs. Margaret, Tyler surprised me with a proposal. Mom, I've been thinking, maybe I've been too hard on you. How about we make peace? We could go have lunch at a special place like old times. What place did you have in mind? I asked, although I already knew the answer. Rainbow Falls, he said with that fake smile I knew so well. We could have a picnic like when I was a kid. My heart raced. Tyler was so desperate he was going to try to kill me again before proceeding with Mrs. Margaret. But this time, I would be prepared. That sounds like a beautiful idea, son, I said with the most maternal smile I could fake. Tomorrow morning, then. That night I called Mr. Aurelio and Sergeant Morales. We had to change all the plans. The trap wouldn't be with Mrs. Margaret, it would be with me again. Mrs. Hope, this is very dangerous, Sergeant Morales warned me. Your son already tried to kill you once. This time he might be more careful. Make sure it works. I know, I replied, but it's also our best opportunity. He's desperate, he'll make mistakes. And this time I won't be alone and defenseless. I spent that night awake, mentally preparing for what would be the final confrontation with my son. I reviewed every detail of the plan, every possible contingency. At dawn, while I prepared for what could be my last breakfast, I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was no longer the naive and manipulated mother from months ago. She was someone who had learned to fight for her life and for justice. Tyler came down for breakfast with that fake smile that now made me nauseous. Ready for our special day, Mom? Ready, I replied, discreetly touching the recording device hidden in my clothes. It will be a day neither of us will ever forget. I had no idea how prophetic that phrase was. The final confrontation was about to begin, and this time, only one of us would return home walking. The morning of the confrontation dawned cloudy, as if the sky itself sensed the storm that was about to unleash. Tyler prepared the car with fake joy that turned my stomach. He had packed sandwiches, even brought a blanket for the supposed picnic. Everything perfectly calculated to create the illusion of a normal family day. But I had also made my preparations. Under my clothes, I wore an audio and video recording device, courtesy of Mr. Aurelio. In my purse, I had a GPS locator that would allow Sergeant Morales to follow us at a prudent distance. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a victim. During the trip to the falls, Tyler was especially talkative. He talked to me about childhood memories, how much he valued our time together, his plans to take care of me in my old age. Every word was a stab of hypocrisy, but I maintained my facade of a moved mother. "You know, Mom," he said as he drove along the winding path to the falls, "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about the future." "Oh yes, son? And what have you thought?" "That maybe it would be better for you, to be at peace, without worries, without the problems of age, without the fear of being a burden." His words confirmed what I already knew. He was going to try to kill me again, but this time, his motives were even colder than before. We arrived at the falls around noon. The place was as deserted as the previous time. Tyler had chosen the timing well. It was a weekday, and the rainy season kept most visitors away. "Why don't we go up to the lookout?" he suggested with that smile that now gave me chills. "The view from up there is beautiful." "As you wish, honey," I replied, discreetly touching the record button on my device. The climb was harder this time. My wounds from the previous fall, although healed, constantly reminded me of what I had suffered in this same place. But they also reminded me why I was here, to end this once and for all. When we reached the lookout, Tyler spread the blanket and began taking out food. Everything seemed genuinely normal until I saw his eyes. They had that same calculating coldness from that time. "Mom," he said after a few minutes of uncomfortable silence, "there's something I need to tell you." "I'm listening, son. I've been investigating your finances. I know you changed the will." My blood froze, but I maintained my composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please, Mom, don't insult me. I know you visited Lawyer Lopez. I know you made changes to your legal documents. I also know you hired a private investigator to spy on me." Tyler slowly stood up, walking toward the edge of the cliff. At first, I got very angry. But then I understood something. It doesn't matter what you changed in the will. If you die in an accident, I, as your only direct heir, can contest any document, especially if I can prove you were mentally unstable. Mentally unstable? Of course. An older woman, living alone, paranoid, making up stories about her own son. It would be very easy to convince a judge that you weren't in full capacity when you changed those documents. His plan was even more sinister than I had imagined. He not only wanted to kill me, but destroy my reputation to secure his inheritance. "Tyler," I said with a trembling voice, not from fear, but from contained rage, "do you really think I'm that naive?" "What do you mean? Do you think that after what happened here a few weeks ago, I would come with you again without taking precautions?" His expression changed. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about the security cameras in the house that recorded all your threats. I'm talking about the private investigator who documented all your scams. I'm talking about Mrs. Margaret, who told me about your plans for her too." Tyler stepped back. His facade of caring son finally collapsed completely. "You don't have anything concrete," he said, but his voice no longer sounded so sure. "Don't I?" I took my phone out of my purse. "How about we listen to the recording from last night, when you were talking on the phone about accelerating your plans because the old lady is getting suspicious?" His face went pale. That's not legal evidence. Maybe not. But combined with everything else, it will be enough to have you investigated for attempted murder, fraud, and scamming multiple victims." That's when Tyler showed his true face. The mask of humanity fell completely, revealing the monster he had always been. "God damn it!" he screamed, with a fury that seemed to come from the deepest part of his rotten soul. "You should have died the first time as planned." "The first time? Tyler, are you confessing to me that you planned to push me?" "Of course I planned it. I had been preparing it for months, studying this place, calculating the angles, making sure it looked like an accident. But you, stubborn bitch, had to survive." His confession was perfectly recorded on my device. But Tyler was already beyond reason. "But this time you won't be so lucky," he said, advancing toward me with eyes injected with hatred. "This time I'm going to make sure you fall head first and there's nothing left to recognize." It was at that moment when the figures of Sergeant Morales and Mr. Aurelio appeared from the bushes with weapons drawn. "Stop! Police! Don't move!" Tyler froze for an instant, but then smiled with a madness that terrified me. "You think you're going to stop me? You have nothing. It's the word of a crazy old woman against mine." "We have your complete confession recorded," Sergeant Morales shouted. "Get away from your mother and get on the ground." But Tyler had already completely lost his sanity. In a desperate move, he lunged toward me, screaming, "If I can't have your inheritance, nobody will." What happened next occurred in slow motion. Tyler ran toward me with arms extended, ready to push me for the second time from the same cliff. But I was no longer the same defenseless woman as before. At the last second, I stepped aside. Tyler, blinded by fury and desperation, couldn't stop his momentum. His own weight carried him directly toward the edge of the cliff. For a moment, our eyes met. In those eyes, I saw terror, regret, and something that could have been genuine filial love for the first time in years. But it was already too late. "Mom!" he screamed as he fell, and I did nothing to stop him. The impact echoed throughout the ravine like a sinister thunder. Afterward, only the sound of running water remained and my labored breathing. But what came next, nobody expected. Sergeant Morales and Mr. Aurelio came running to the edge of the cliff. Below, among the rocks, lay Tyler's motionless body. But to my surprise, he was still breathing. "He's alive!" shouted Mr. Aurelio. "Call an ambulance." During the next 2 hours, while we waited for the rescue teams, I had time to process what had happened. My son, the same one who had tried to kill me twice, now depended on those same paramedics to save his life. When they finally brought him up on a stretcher, Tyler was conscious but badly hurt. He had multiple fractures, but the paramedics said he would live. As they carried him toward the ambulance, our eyes met once more. "Mom," he whispered with a broken voice, "I'm sorry. I didn't know if it was the pain medication or genuine repentance, but for the first time in years, I saw my real son in those eyes, not the monster he had become." "I'm sorry too, Tyler," I replied. "Sorry I didn't know how to save you before you went so far." The following months were a legal and emotional whirlwind. Tyler was arrested from his hospital bed and faced multiple charges: 2 counts of attempted murder, fraud, document forgery, and scam. The evidence we had collected was overwhelming, but the story didn't end as I expected. During the trial, something extraordinary happened. Tyler, faced with all the evidence of his crimes and perhaps touched by his near-death experience, decided to confess everything. He not only admitted his crimes against me, but also revealed other similar cases that authorities didn't know about. "My mother gave me unconditional love throughout my life," he testified from his wheelchair before the judge, "and I turned it into a tool to manipulate her. I deserve everything that happens to me, but she doesn't deserve to carry the guilt of having created me this way." His testimony helped authorities solve 3 more cases of scamming older women in the region. Mrs. Margaret wasn't his only additional victim. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in prison, but with possibility of parole in 8 years for his cooperation and apparently genuine repentance. After the trial, I had to make a decision that would change my life forever. Would I visit Tyler in prison? Would I try to rebuild some kind of relationship with him? The answer came 6 months later, when I received a letter from him from jail. "Mom," he wrote with shaky handwriting, "I'm not writing to ask for your forgiveness, because I know I don't deserve it. I'm writing to tell you something I should have told you years ago. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I had given up being your son. During these months in prison, I've been receiving psychological help. I've begun to understand the damage I did to you, not just physical, but emotional. I've begun to understand that the monster I became wasn't born from nothing, but from years of selfish decisions that I made. You're not to blame for anything." The letter continued, "I've decided to use my time here to do something good for the first time in my life. I'm studying law and helping other inmates write apology letters to their victims. I'm also working on a program to prevent domestic violence against older people. I'm not doing it to reduce my sentence. I'm doing it because I finally understand the damage I caused. At the end of the letter, there was a question that broke my heart. I'm not asking you to forgive me, or to visit me, or to consider me your son again. I only ask that you know that, for the first time in my adult life, I'm genuinely sorry. And if I can prevent other sons from hurting their mothers like I hurt you, maybe my life can still have some purpose. I cried for hours after reading that letter. They weren't tears of sadness, but of a deep relief I hadn't felt in decades. My son, the real Tyler I had known as a child, still existed somewhere underneath all that darkness. I decided to visit him. Our first meeting in prison was uncomfortable and painful. Tyler had lost a lot of weight, had permanent scars from his fall, and walked with a cane. But there was something different in his eyes. The coldness had disappeared, replaced by something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine vulnerability. "Mom," he said with tears in his eyes, "I'm so sorry for everything I did to you. I know words can't undo the damage, but I needed you to hear it from my mouth." I didn't respond immediately. We sat in silence for several minutes, processing years of pain and betrayal. Finally, I said, "Tyler, I can't pretend the damage didn't exist. I can't pretend I don't have physical and emotional scars that will last forever. But you're my son, and a part of me never stopped loving you, even when I hated you most. I don't deserve your love. It's not about deserving, son. It's that a mother's love is a force that transcends logic. But now that love has limits and conditions it didn't have before." We talked for 2 hours. I told him about my healing process, about the therapy I had started, about how I had learned to live without fear. He told me about his work in prison, about the apology letters he had helped write, about his commitment to dedicate his life to repairing the damage he had caused. When I got up to leave, Tyler said something I'll never forget. "Mom, I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me completely, but I want you to know that the woman who faced her own son at that waterfall and came out victorious is the bravest mother I know. I'm proud to be your son, even though I don't deserve to be." That was the first time in years I felt proud of having been his mother. 2 years have passed since then. I visit Tyler once a month. Our relationship will never be the same again, and maybe that's okay. We've built something new, based on honesty, mutual respect, and real consequences. Tyler graduated with a diploma in conflict mediation and now directs a program in the prison for adult children who have committed crimes against their parents. He has helped dozens of families find some kind of healing. I, for my part, have found my purpose. Together with Mrs. Margaret and other women who were victims of family scammers, we've created a foundation that helps older people identify and protect themselves from financial and emotional manipulation by family members. The house that Tyler wanted so much is now the headquarters of our foundation. Every day, women arrive who have lived stories similar to mine, seeking help, guidance, and mainly, the strength to defend themselves. My son tried to destroy me, but inadvertently taught me that I'm much stronger than I ever imagined. And although the damage he caused me will never completely disappear, I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or minimizing the damage, but freeing yourself from the weight of hatred to be able to move forward. Today, as I write this story, I can say that both Tyler and I found a form of redemption. He, by repairing the damage he caused. I, by using my experience to protect other women. Rainbow Falls is still there, but now when I pass near it, I no longer see the place where I almost died. I see the place where the strongest woman I never thought I could be was born, and that woman, finally, is at peace. If this story touched your soul, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. For the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for joining me on this journey of pain, justice, and redemption.